Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Failure as Your Friend. My name is Cisco, and I'm here to introduce this amazing day. I know that Con is just getting started, but I promise you, well, not really promise, but I think you swear, this is the single greatest panel that you're going to see. Not just at CONvergence, but any convention you've ever attended, will attend, or can have heard someone else attending. Anyway, enough about me. I want to introduce this incredible day because today we're going to be talking about otherwise successful people telling tales about their worst efforts and what was learned and or earned from them. And so we're going to go down the line, and what I'd love to do is hear your names, your pronouns, and since we're going to be talking about failure for the next hour or so, how about a success that you've had recently, just to balance the scales a little bit. And we'll start all the way at the far end.
Oh, that was me. Okay. Hi, I'm Kelly, vitamin K, she, her. Recent success. Probably holding my stuff together for my dad's funeral and taking care of everybody else.
Hi, I'm Chris, pronouns he, him, his, and I would say most recent success would be when we passed our ballot initiatives in Huntington Beach to protect our public library.
Oh my gosh.
For those who don't know, Huntington Beach is the Florida of Orange County.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I go by she, they pronouns. I'm going to go very small and just be like, it's a success for me to be here. I'm very nervous, so just me being here is like, hey, I did it.
No success too big or too small. I thought I didn't have any clean socks, and it turned out I had some laundry and just got to throw away. So I had nothing but clean socks. Cool. So let's kick things off with, we'll keep it light. How about a hilarious or minor failure that you can laugh at now, but at the time just wrecked you?
I got one. So playing high school football, I believe it was my junior year, we were playing Fountain Valley. We had it was probably about like 2 minutes left in the game. And so we just scored to cut the lead to within 2. So we needed an onside kick to get the ball back. So I lined up, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. Ran up, went to take the kick, hit it backwards. Immediately start hyperventilating, go over to the sideline, I'm like, I can't breathe. The coach calls the trainer over, he's like, you need to look at Kluwe, he's gonna pass out. Obviously at the time, as a junior in high school, I'm like, oh my god, this is the end of the world. Looking back, I'm like, that must have been one of the funniest things people have ever seen.
That's hilarious because mine was also high school. Like the very first day of high school, walking in, being the little kid on campus, the rug had gotten messed up. I tripped, fell, tumbled, stood up. I'm fine.
Oh man, this was like very real, but I'm a mental health therapist. Totally called the client the wrong name twice, and one of their issues was like people forgetting them. Oh my god!
So, staying in the nostalgia zone, do you remember the first time that you failed, truly failed at something that mattered to you? Well, I mean, not do you remember. Share with us the time that first time that it really hit you, that what was there, and how did you cope with it, how did you deal with it, and how do you feel about it now?
I guess I'll go first again. The first time that I ever really, truly failed, I think I was like 7 or 8, and my dad wanted me and my brother to learn sailing for whatever reason. He had a sailboat, and so he put us in sabots. For those who don't know, sabots are small, little 6-foot boats. You got to put in the keel, you got to do the sail, it's a one-person boat. And they have an annoying tendency to flip over, very, very easily. And so there was this sailing competition, for all the young kids who were in the yacht club, or, where my dad was at. And it was really windy. So we get out, and already I'm like terrified because as a 7-year-old, you're just like, okay, I don't think I'm gonna be able to control this thing. I think I got maybe like 10 or 20 feet forward after the start of the race, and my boat flipped over, and I just completely lose it. Like I'm sobbing. I'm in the bathroom. Like once I eventually get out of the water, and so finally, then like my parents are like, okay, you gotta come back. Like the race is over. There's the award ceremony, and so I got my little participation plaque thing. But yeah, that was definitely a true failure. Nothing went right.
Mine actually is football related. I feel like failures is sometimes like when we don't like kind of continue further, like kind of push past things. I remember being in elementary school and I kind of grew up as like a tomboy, really loved sports. And in elementary school, the teacher was like, oh, who's interested in after school football? And like a lot of boys raised their hand. I was the only female. And then like the boys kind of like, oh, what's a female doing playing football or like wanting to? And then I just like put my hand down. But I like didn't have that courage to like, oh no, I'm gonna win. Because I feel like there's like a failure in like just even pushing past that. Like, okay, I like could have just like done that or like pushed past that or something. So it's still like, oh, I should have done more of that. Okay.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's really hard as a young kid.
Yes. So mine was college related, and again, kind of that theme of fighting past it. My bachelor's degree was pursuing American Sign Language. They have a thing that you have to get a certain level of grades to continue the program. I'm a smart person. That's been the one thing I've been egotistical about my whole life. Judge me later. But I failed. I got held back in the program and I had to reapply, and it made me question everything I knew about myself and value about myself, because I had centered a lot of my identity around this. And did I really want to do this thing that was clearly much harder than I thought? Because it was based on teamwork, and I was all about hate and group projects. But I rallied, and I ended up coming back, getting back in course, and graduating with a smaller group of people that I connected with and I'm still in touch with today. And it was a fundamental shift in who I am. Yeah.
Let's stay in that space. What are some other times that you thought that something was a failure, but then you just kind of realized maybe in hindsight or like later on in life, looking back, or just in that moment, it was really kind of like a redirection.
I'm sorry, I have to continue because it's all related to the same story. So I did get the degree. I did go into sign language. I got my national certification, dipped my toe in the field, and went, oh no, oh no. And then you have this panic of, holy crap, I went to a Catholic private school. I have student loans that are, what do I do now? And it was a massive pivot to go, okay, what did I actually like about this? What did I love about this? Oh, it was the research. It was the writing. So now I am a professional writer, and I make 4 times as much money and do cooler shit.
I'd say for me it was when I got to college. My initial major was in computer science because I really like computers. I like programming, and I was doing really well in my computer science classes. And unfortunately, at the time at UCLA, in order to get into the computer science major, it was part of the engineering department. So you had to pass the engineering level physics class. That was the first class in my life I've never understood. Tangent, come see my panel, The Physics of Money. I will not be explaining the physics. Dr. Jim will. But yeah, so that was one where I was like, crap, I need to keep taking classes because I'm eligible, to stay eligible to play football. I was like, well, I guess I gotta find something else to do. And then one of my roommates at the time was like, there's this poli-sci professor who gives open book, open note tests. I was like, perfect, I read really fast, I don't have to show up to class. And so that turned into a poli-sci degree, then a history degree, and then, it definitely changed my trajectory in terms of my life, because I'd like to think that me as a computer science major is probably a lot different than me that was like a poli-sci history major. I think those are probably 2 very different people.
I'm gonna go personal with this one, but just married, I used to be married and then divorced, and like that could be seen as like I failed at like a relationship or something, but obviously like when relationships end, that gives space for something like bigger to happen, and now I have multiple partnerships that are like just really beautiful and great, and I feel like I'm more in line with like the life that I want to be living.
Let's get more personal. Like, because it's an objective experience, right? Everyone handles successes and failures and losses and wins differently. So for you specifically, like, what does failure feel like if you can articulate that? Like, how do you know something's a failure as opposed to like just a mistake?
So that's actually really tough to quantify, right? Because I think a lot of us think that mistakes are failures, but a lot of times mistakes are you just learning how to do something. Whereas a failure is like you have a legit goal in mind, where it's like, I have to do this specific thing, and then you don't do the thing for whatever reason, and that's when it starts to feel like failure. And yeah, no, I think it's important to be able to draw a distinction between those two, right? Because like you can learn from both, but for me, a failure feels a lot more personal, where it's like, okay, like I expected a certain thing to happen, and then it didn't happen. Whereas a mistake is like, okay, I'm trying to do this thing, and yeah, I screwed it up, but you know, I can still do the thing and like get something out of it. Whereas a failure is like, I don't know if I can get something out of that, and then you have to learn how to get something out of that.
I would agree with the kind of nuance you're drawing there, and especially because like that piece of, okay, now what do I do? Who am I now? Where do I go from here? And no one can answer those questions for you. You have to answer them for yourself, and you have to do that like really, really deep soul searching, and that in itself can be a powerful journey regardless of where you end up.
Yeah, I can kind of take things to the extreme. So seeing a failure, I can then go to like, well, I'm a failure. That becomes like an identity. And so being able to separate, like, okay, it's same with like guilt and shame. Like shame is more of an identity. So mistakes are kind of more like something that happened. And so, yeah, I can have to separate, like, okay, well, I failed at this one thing, or like a mistake is kind of something that's like, okay, I can like fix that or something. So I agree with like the, okay, how do I move forward from this? Like, what does this mean now? And being creative definitely helps too, when like you're kind of stuck somewhere. It's like, how can I get creative with this? Yeah.
So two-parter, kind of piggyback on that. Like fear is kind of a part of failure, they're kind of dead buddies. So first question is, what role does fear play with you now that you didn't have earlier in life with your careers, as far as like being afraid to fail versus failing and then being afraid of like sort of the unknown? And then kind of like supplementary, what are some of the techniques and tricks and things that you've found work for you that may work for others that help you kind of get past that fear? Either attempt something you think you might fail at, or after failing to kind of help get you back on the path towards whatever the redirection is.
Yeah, so I know for me, like fear has always been a part, right? Like going out on an NFL football field, like there's fear there, right? You have to learn how to deal with it. You have to learn to accept it and to internalize it and be like, okay, yes, I recognize that I am feeling this thing, but it's going to interfere with what I actually want to do. So how do I move past that? And so for me, a lot of it was just having confidence in practice, right? And knowing that I have done this specific thing thousands of times before, and that, yeah, even if I do screw it up this one time, I'll do it better the next time, and I'll do what I need to do the next time. So I think it's really important to accept the fact that fear exists, but to not let it rule you, right? Like no one has no fear unless you have something like going on in your head. Like, fear is a natural response to events, to occurrences, because it's what's kept us alive as human beings. So yeah, to just recognize that the fear is there, and then figure out, and that coping mechanism is going to be different for everyone, right? Like for someone else, it might be, okay, well, I'm going to think about something else. You know, it might not be like, oh, I practiced a lot. So figure out what your coping mechanisms are, figure out how to use that fear effectively, and then focus on what it is you need to do. Because if you're focusing on your fear, you're not focusing on what you need to do, and that's how you're going to end up failing.
So it's funny that we're talking about fear. So one of my ridiculous hobbies is I have horses and I ride. And every time you throw your leg over a new animal, you could die. Like you could die because they kicked out at a fly. Like it is 100% risk all the time, much like an NFL field. Also, large creatures running at you at full speed.
Slightly less death.
But one of the things that I remember is like, I've done this before, I've done this many times, I understand how this works fundamentally, and also I'm here to take care of them. And that shifts my perspective into like caring, and they respond to that. So like my mentorship helps them shift.
We continue with the things that can kill us. I go rock climbing, and I notice that like when I'm in my head, like yeah, just like with the fear and with my thoughts, I do not climb well. And so I'm very present on the wall and just focusing on what's in front of me, then I climb a whole lot better. So I'm also a very like somatic person, so when I like feel that fear, like it's very present, and just trying to like calm my body down, using breath work, lots of reminders. Again, as you said, like, you know, I've done this many times or something, or remind myself, I double check my knot on my like harness rope and like, if it's all tied in, it's great, I'm probably gonna be fine. So lots of reminders of safety and being okay.
I want deja failure, and I'll contextualize that. But like, so has there been something like a lesson that was taught to you by a mentor, a family member, teacher, professor, that didn't quite sink in, and then when you went and totally shit the bed, then it's kind of like, oh, I get it. So where has failure kind of been sort of the safety net that like got the message across what others haven't?
I got this one. Okay. Sorry, you're lovely, but I want to be at the end of 2022, I was laid off. For the first time in my life, I had dodged that particular bullet at several different employers, and then it came for me. And what I remembered was a previous manager who said, always stay hustling, always stay ready. And they laid us off right after Thanksgiving, paid us through December. So I had 1 month. I gave myself a month to get my shit together and rubber meets the road, whatever aphorism you want to put on there. And by the end of January, I had a new job at a new company, doing something so much more than I had previously been allowed to do at my previous place. So, like, believing in yourself and pushing yourself to work hard, even when you're afraid. It's huge.
I kind of hear this from like a lot of different sources, and it's something that I'm just like, yeah, sure, but like really sticking to your values and what's important to you. So I co-own an academy-assisted psychotherapy clinic, and we were working with, because therapists can't prescribe, so we're working with one medical provider person that just like wasn't in line with what we were trying to do, and so we ended up having to like get rid of that person. And so we were academy-assisted psychotherapy clinic that like couldn't prescribe, and so it's like, oh no, what do we do now? And we're just like, you know, sticking to our values is like, we really want to have like clients have autonomy and like focus on health and stuff. And so we just kind of like waited until we found someone. And right now we really do have like, because it's so hard in the medical community to find doctors who like listen to clients and put them first and stuff. And so it took us a while, but now we have someone just like so amazing. So really like, it was definitely like a waiting period of like, who knows what's going to happen. But again, like just sticking to the values really actually did end up working out, even though there was like a ton of uncertainty, but it's so much better now.
Yeah, so for me, I think it was my second year in college. So up to that point and a little bit afterwards, like I would continually NF myself, like if I made a mistake. Like if I had a bad kick during practice, like I'd be yelling and screaming at myself, you know, just expecting perfection, right? And so one of my coaches at the time is like, you know, Chris, you gotta like, you have to treat yourself better, and you can't get so upset about making like a tiny small mistake. And the main reason I think he was saying it is because like it was at family day at the Bruins practice. And here I am just drawing at bombs left and right. You got the kids in the bleachers, and he's like, dude, you can't do that. But also like, you know, to be a better athlete, you have to be able to accept the fact that yes, you are chasing perfection, but it's actually going to be very rare that you get there. Like for most of the time, you're going to be at like 99.5%. If you let that last 0.5%, like that's what you're focusing on, you're not going to do well on your next attempt because you're not focusing on what you're doing then. So it took me a little while to internalize that, but then once I did, I found that I was actually kicking the ball better and more consistently. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe he did know what he was talking about.
That progress over perfection is such a lovely frame.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is super important too, because like, I think when we all try to do something, we want that thing to be good, right? Like, we want it to be perfect. And accepting the fact that even if you give your very best effort, sometimes that might just not be the case. And it might not even be your fault. You might just get unlucky. Because like that happens. You can do everything right, and then the wind blows in the wrong direction. Like you can't control the wind. And so yeah, just accepting that like yes, perfection, you can achieve it occasionally, but trying to make that be your standard is like it's not very mentally healthy for you, and you should chase it, but you should also recognize that you're not going to get there most of the time.
I do not believe in perfection at all. So, and that helps because if we expect things to be perfect, we're going to fail all the time at that because we're never going to meet that. But yeah, definitely like giving ourselves a lot of grace of like, and being okay with like, yeah, it's good enough. You know, kind of knowing when good enough's okay, and okay, maybe I need to try a little bit harder at that thing.
Cool. We can go even deeper. So there's a famous saying, it was like Oprah or Kermit the Frog, but somebody said that like failure and like you can't have success without failure. Like so there's a primary ingredient in success. So like in your mind, take yourself back. In your current field of study, your current careers now, like, you're all very successful people. So what was a major failure that at that moment you thought, this is it? And then it turned out it wasn't it. Like, what was that moment like? Describe that. How did you get past it? How did you accept it at the moment? What was that moment?
So I've got a really funny one. So my very first, my second year with the Vikings was my first year where I was actually a holder for field goals. So I'd done it in college, like I was used to what the job entailed. And our very first game was against Washington on Monday Night Football. So I go out there for my very first extra point hold, and I take the snap. And I pick the ball up and I'm like, oh crap, I guess I got to try to run for it. The dude tackles me at the 2-yard line because again, I wasn't hired for my speed. But yeah, it was something where like I had done it so many times, right? Where I was like I was expecting that this was going to be a success, and then it was a failure. But then I went on and I was a really good holder because like I was like, okay, now I have to be able to put this past me. Like I can't focus on the past anymore because I can't change it. Right? Like when you fail, that's it, that's done. That's a discrete point in history that you cannot go back to. So the question is, what do you do next? So I was like, okay, well I'm gonna make sure that doesn't happen again. And then I went on and was very good at holding for the Vikings.
So going back to job things, so I'm a writer, I'm a technical writer, and now a UX writer. I work for a software company. Engineers are not always kind. During my early baby years, I got a lot of praise to start because they didn't want me to quit. But then an engineer didn't give a fuck. And I showed him this thing I'd worked really hard on, and he was like, your documentation sucks. And he went to walk away. I sucked that tear back into my face. And I said, but wait, tell me how. Tell me in what way. And he kind of, and he was very grumpy and gruff with me, and I just had to endure that unkindness to get what I needed to do my job. And after that, I had his respect because he's like, nothing bothers you. You're a tough broad. I love that. But that ability to kind of like have somebody say, you suck, you're a failure, your stuff is terrible, and go, but what should I learn from this? Be a part of my solution. That was really, really powerful. And now I chase them down all the time. They can't avoid me.
Yeah, definitely with that one client afterwards, I was like, oh my god, like what am I doing? I should not be a therapist right now. Like, luckily the therapy field's like pretty forgiving and stuff, and so it wasn't like, yes. So it wasn't like, okay, I'm like legit in trouble or anything, but I did have to look and be like, okay, what is going on? Like, this was like I was working a whole lot, so recognizing the burnout that I was facing, and so now I definitely like make sure that I am not seeing so many clients and taking care of myself. So just kind of noticing again, like what can I learn from this? Like why did that happen? And taking care of myself.
Well, that was the last one, I promise. No, they're all fun as far as failure goes. But have you ever found yourself in a situation that you disagreed with it being a failure? Or had someone disagree with you, something you thought was a failure, that they saw as maybe a success, but not a complete loss?
Most of my baking.
In that theme, I do a lot of cooking for my family, and there have been dishes that I've made where I'm just like, oh yeah, no, that turned out really well. My wife's like, yeah, no, that sucked. It's just like, but it turned out so well. And I'm like, we'll ask the kids about it. about half the time, they're like, yeah, no, that was good. And then the other half, they're like, yeah, no, that sucked. so trying to just improve. So everyone said, oh, yeah, no, that was good.
Continue on the cooking thing. I think for me, like, again, just like the good enough. I'm always like, oh, it's good enough. And it's like, I don't know. Like, maybe for me it's good, but yeah.
And we spent the last like 20 minutes talking about like intense failure and how learning failure. Screw all that. Sometimes it just sucks, right? So how do you, what are the criteria by which you measure whether or not like, you're like, oh, it's not for me versus this is a learning opportunity? Like, you failed, and try again, but then also trying the same thing without changing things up is also a definition of not well.
I think you're looking at harm. Is it harmful to yourself, harmful to other people, harmful to the world? That's one of the reasons why I quit being an interpreter, because I sucked so bad. I sat there and went, how could I do this to people's lives? This is their job, their workplace, and I'm practicing on their life. I couldn't sit with the ethics of that, so on a different path.
Mine's just like how much time and energy. I will not learn guitar. Like, that is just, I've tried so many times. It is just not happening. So I was putting way too much time. Like, yeah, it's just not something for me. Yeah.
Tackling girls. The one and only tackling girl I participated in high school. I was a ball carrier. I tore my ACL. So at that point, I decided, nope, this is not for me. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna kick the football, but everything else, you guys can have that.
So, in that same vein, has there ever been something where you were maybe the last person to realize that it was time to walk away?
My marriage? It's really bad when the therapist is like, honey, it's not gonna change. And you've been in therapy for more than a decade. Like, okay, does that mean your guest house is mine? It actually was really freeing, to be honest, because I was in it to the end. I wanted it to work so badly, and I just had to admit that he wasn't in it for the same things. And now I'm free, my life is so much better.
I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm very closely approaching it. So I play a lot of soccer to stay in shape. And one of the leagues I play in is an open league, and it's a lot of like 20, 21, 22, 23-year-olds. And I like playing center back, but I've been transitioning to goalie. I just can't keep up anymore. Now, the teams are still inviting me back to play goalie, but I think I'm pretty close to that age where I'm just like, okay, I gotta devote all my time to my over 40 leagues. Because I really just cannot keep up with the 20-year-olds anymore.
I can't think of anything right now, which means there's probably something or multiple things that I need to stop doing. But I am someone who is just so persistent. Like, no, I'll keep trying.
Well, even with those failures, are there ever times now that you go back and try to redo? Because we're always moving forward and growing as humans and magical pieces of stardust. Like, do you ever look back and like, oh, no, I wasn't good then, but maybe ...
That guitar. I still jam.
I'm sorry for saying this, but I've always been really good at everything so yeah.
Go back and practice humility.
My wife agrees with you.
Go on then. For me, it would be singing, because growing up, I always described my singing voice as like a cat in a blender. But now I can kind of carry a tune if I've got a really big bucket.
I think kind of along with that, I feel like I'm good at everything. There's different types of imposter syndrome, and one of them is the naturalist, and I feel like I kind of have that. When I pick something up, I'm usually pretty decent at it. So if there's something I actually need to work on, then I'm like, oh, I'm awful at this. There's just you just have to put in the effort.
The curse of the gifted child.
Yeah.
And I think I would have to say a lot of folks get trapped in this where people shove you towards the thing you're naturally inclined to, regardless of how you actually feel about it. But sometimes going for the thing that you had to work harder to achieve is so much more satisfying.
What would you put the ratio at? How much of success or failure is organic versus learned? For you.
I also have the blues problem. No, but I also play in my lane for the most part. Like, yeah, that's not together. But I stick to the things I know I can succeed at because I'm inherently lazy. But when I do try, like, I can fail in good conscience because I know I tried. And I want to try my darndest. And then if I walk away from it, cool.
Right. Yeah. Well, so that's something my parents always taught me was like, if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. And I think if you try something to the very best of your ability, now you got to be honest with yourself and understand like what the best of your ability actually entails. But if you do that, then you can fail at something and be okay with it. Because you know there is nothing else I could have done differently, right? And I think the other important point is there's a third factor that you didn't mention, which is luck. Like, luck plays a huge role. I mean, the privilege plays a huge role as well, which is, part of luck, right? I got very lucky that I was born with good genetics as a straight white man. that opens a lot of doors for me that it doesn't open for other people. I got very lucky when the year I came out of college to go to the NFL, 4 teams actually needed punters. Like that gave me an opportunity to show what I could do. Like that's nothing I could have influenced. I just got lucky. And so sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get unlucky. And learning how to recognize that, I think, can go a long way towards your own self-mental health and understanding that, yes, I literally did everything I could possibly do, but I got unlucky. Like that happens. It happens to a lot of people.
That's that forgiveness piece right there. I mean, forgiving yourself for failure is just kind of a big deal too, because the world tells us we should be super hard on ourselves, but maybe be nice to yourself.
I feel like I haven't failed enough, which means I'm not pushing my boundaries enough. Like, I need to try other things. Yeah.
Tell me more about
Yeah. Like, again, with the football thing, like, I could have, like, pushed harder at that and been like, no, I'm still gonna, like, again, I was a child, but, like, even now, and I feel like I have done that. So psychedelic-assisted therapy is something new coming out in the therapy field, and there is pushback with that, but I, like, believed in it so much that it's like, I'm gonna do what I can do, pushing those boundaries, and so that takes a lot of courage. I haven't failed at it yet, please don't blame me, but like I want to keep pushing that, and so I just, I kind of want to keep like, expanding like my comfort zone, and like, I need to fail at more things.
Failure is fuel. So, is there a danger of overvaluing failure? Like, we clearly as a society, at least in certain pockets of the internet, we overvalue success, or at least the appearance of success. Is there something with failure where we give it too much power sometimes, or too often?
I think if it stops us from continuing forward, then
100%.
Getting back to my earlier point, I think it's when we're not honest with ourselves. When we say, oh yeah, I did my best, but you didn't actually do your best, right? When you use an excuse to be like, oh, well, it was bad luck that I didn't do this thing, when actually it was you just didn't give it your all. And again, that's a very difficult thing to sort of internalize and comprehend, right? Like, because you do have to be super honest with yourself, and it can be tough to develop that. But when you do kind of push it off onto something else, and you still had more to give, well, then I've played with a lot of guys who did that, and they did not last very long. Because if you're out there with the best and you continually make excuses for yourself, well, at a certain point it's going to be like, well, then yes, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you're accepting failure, and then you're just going to keep failing because you're not being honest with yourself.
How do you define that differently from like the messaging you receive in society? Because there's a lot of like for example, ADHD, which may have been apparent already. But society, I'm a late diagnosed ADHD person, and like all those messages growing up of you're lazy, you're disorganized, but I needed meds.
Right.
So like how do you know the difference between being honest with yourself versus like accepting the messaging the society's giving you?
If I had to answer that, I would fix society. I think it's just something we all have to continually work on, and it's something we have to value, right? Like the idea we have to value both ideas that it is okay to fail, but that you also have to be honest with yourself and knowing when you have failed due to your own actions versus when you have failed due to something outside of your control.
I also think contextually, so what maybe did you need in your environment, or how could the system change to help you do what's important to you?
Well, and then that falls under factors outside your control, right? Like if you're growing up in a poor inner city neighborhood that's a food desert, like you probably aren't going to grow up with the same nutrition as other people. That's going to make it very difficult for you to succeed in any sort of athletic pursuit. If you're growing up in a place where there's no access to public libraries or access to education, that's going to make it very difficult for you to succeed no matter how hard you try. So yeah, I think, again, that's part of being honest with yourself, that's part of recognizing, right? Like these are factors outside of my control, and we should fix these things if we want to give everyone the best chance to succeed that they can possibly have.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. I'm looking around the room. It looks like it's good enough age group. But for those who don't remember, there used to be this thing called talk shows. It's kind of like YouTube, but everything was the comment section. And so what I'm going to do is, if you have a question, I think there are placards on the aisles. There's still those placards in the air. You don't have to wave it like you don't care. And then I'll run out to the microphone. That way we can all hear your questions, comments, critique.
Thank you for your service.
Don't be afraid to be the first person. It's always the first person that's got to break the dam. Oh, there we go.
Brave! Yay! We are a brave space.
We have hope.
Not brave space, we are brave space.
Sometimes, I'm thinking about accessibility and disability. Sometimes you struggle with things randomly, and then you find out that actually it was your body, or it was something else that maybe you kind of have had control of, kind of, or maybe sort of didn't, and it can feel like you're in a weird in-between place, where you're like, well, that was kind of on me, but it was sort of on my knees, or whatever that was. Do you have any advice for somebody in that situation?
Again, just getting back to what I said earlier, just being honest, right? Like trying to differentiate between what were the factors that I could control versus what were the factors I couldn't control, right? Like you're not going to be able to control the genetics your parents gave you. Like that's that was never your choice. It probably wasn't even their choice. Like that just happened. So yeah, just trying to figure out, okay, what were all the things that I realistically could have done in this situation? And if I did all of those things and failed anyways, well then that wasn't on me, that was on factors outside of my control.
And when you're in that in-between state, when you're not sure, is it me, is it them, is it the environment, connecting with people who are like you. Like, I'm weirdly embarrassed to say this, but it was really because of TikTok that I was like, oh, I really should go get checked. Maybe I am ADHD. And then I went through the test and like wasn't even halfway through, and I'm like, oh, I'm totally ADHD. but that whole finding people who have had similar enough experiences to help you understand what is the disability, what is the environment, what is under your control, when you don't know, like they help you sort your brain out. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, sorry, just to piggyback on that. That's why good coaching is really important, because that's what a good coach does. They understand you're going to fail at something, and then they're going to point out where you failed and how you can fix it. And that's not just for athletics, that goes for everything. Like the people who have experience should be helping you learn from your failures and helping you learn how to differentiate between, okay, here's what you could have done differently versus here's what you could have affected. So let's focus on this part, and that part, well, sometimes you just get unlucky. Like it happens.
Yeah, just understanding the environment, situation, kind of data points of like, okay, it happened this time, but not this time, what's going on here?
Be a scientist all the time. Yeah.
Hey there. I was just wondering, in some cases it feels like certain industries have almost this expectation of failure kind of built into it, right? I work in software, and that's kind of an everyday thing for me. And the other example I think about is like in college, students would take organic chemistry and they're told, you're not going to do well in organic chem, like just accept it, right? Like,
Just know.
I guess, how would you approach that situation for people who are interested in those fields, that keep them interested without scaring them away with the, hey, you're bound to fail? What sort of encouragement would you give them to continue anyway?
I mean, I feel like speaking first.
Having worked alongside folks in the software industry and a lot of places that are really broad. Like, if you think engineers are bad about criticizing each other, interpreters are so much worse. It's like borderline mean. But it's that like forged in fire kind of aspect. So it's one of those things that you have to shift your perspective in the failures you're getting and in the feedback you're getting and see it as a gift. It is not a criticism. They're giving you a gift of showing you where you can change and fucking run with it.
Yeah, so I base a lot of my stuff on athletics because obviously that's what I did for a large part of my life. But I think back to when I was a kid and I played baseball growing up and I wanted to be a pitcher. And the very first time I took the mound as a pitcher, I had no training. I had no idea what I was doing, and I think I beat 3 kids in a row before the parents got so angry that they made me not be a pitcher for the rest of that game. But then I went to baseball games, and I actually learned how to pitch. And it took a while to do it. It took a lot of hard work and practice, but everyone starts from zero, right? Everyone starts from a point of not knowing anything about what they want to do, and then we learn from that. And it becomes, I think as you get older, it becomes harder to keep that learning spirit, right? Because you've had success in other areas and you're expecting that success to translate someplace else. But you got to keep in your mind, essentially at this point, you're trying something new. You're a tiny little baby. You're not walking yet. You're not even close to running. You've got to learn how to crawl. You have to learn the basic fundamentals of how your body works, and then you can move your way to standing. Then you can move your way to walking, then jogging, then running. And so, yeah, just give yourself the grace to understand that, I am starting from zero here. I am going to make a lot of mistakes, but if I pay attention and if I learn from what people are telling me, I shouldn't make the same mistake more than once, right? Because that's the goal. It's mistakes are fine. Everyone should make mistakes. That means you're trying something new, you're learning. Just don't make the same mistake again, because that shows that you actually learned from what happened.
Yeah, it's okay to learn. I just remind myself that a lot. When you make a mistake or something, it's okay to learn. But also, what if we had these environments where it was okay to make mistakes, we were kind of passionate towards each other, rather than just yelling at each other or you're a bad person because of that. So also a lot of applications or websites and stuff started as one thing and they could have been seen as a failure, but they actually ended up being something else. I think PayPal was like that or something. It started off as one thing and now it's that. And you'd see it as a failure and just give up on it, or you'd take a creative turn and be like, oh, now it's this thing instead.
Well, your environment is also important. So if you don't have good coaching, it's going to be very hard for you to succeed. And I've seen that firsthand, where there's been coaches that have just yelled at me about well, you messed that up, do it differently. I'm like, how do I do it differently? I don't know, you figure it out. Well, what's the point of you? So also understand, if the environment's bad, it's going to be difficult for you to succeed because you're effectively having to teach yourself. If it's a good environment, those people who know what they're doing will take you aside, and as was said earlier, they will give you feedback, they will give you advice. And sometimes you may not want to hear that advice. No, it doesn't feel good to be told, yeah, no, you really suck at that right now. But if they also tell you, here's how you suck less, well, they are doing you a favor. They are helping you become what you want to be. So you gotta take that in, and then you gotta learn from it. Other questions? What questions?
Hey, I was just wondering if you guys have any experience with documenting your process or your progress, if that has helped you at all. I'd love to hear it because, especially as crafters, looking at all the crafters in the room, I feel like it's really hard to lose sight of how much work you did for a thing sometimes, especially if it doesn't turn out perfect, because we all want our first try to turn out perfect and then never have to make a mock-up. I'm looking at myself. I'm sure I don't know if you're in sports, if you kept tapes from your first tries of stuff or whatever, but as it applies.
Oh yeah. So going back to that very ridiculous hobby of horses, I've rehabbed several over the years, and one of the things that I always do is I take photos and videos along the way and send messages to trusted folks of, oh, this is what went badly today, this is what I'm going to try tomorrow. And I kind of create this journal, and I try to remind myself when things really are sucking in the moment, I have to go, okay, but 3 years ago, this horse wouldn't stand at the on block. Look at how far we've come, and kind of encourage myself and just believe in in the process and believe that I'm making progress, even if it's just a little bit at a time, it's still forward. It's still forward.
With crafting, I love the nailed it Pinterest post. So yeah, again, we all have to start somewhere. I keep journals. This is something one of my therapists taught me. It's called a shift list rather than a shit list. It's things that I've just like shifted. So like perspective, beliefs, new things I've done. So that's just for my personal life. Just to keep track of that.
Yeah, so from an athletics perspective, it's definitely a lot easier because like you can look at the weights and be like, I lifted 5 pounds heavier than I did yesterday. Like for punting, it's okay, now I'm kicking the ball with 4.5 seconds of hang time instead of 4.2 seconds of hang time. So there are measurables there, but I think to the broader point, what you want to do is look at, okay, did I do something more than 0, right? Because if you do even one thing, like that's more than nothing. And it doesn't have to be an amazing thing. It doesn't have to be like you solved the world's problems today. But if you did something more than nothing, you are making progress to where you want to be. And then just look back on what you've done. Like that's, I look back, I remember back to my first times kicking a football, and yeah, I hit some good ones, but I was terrible most of the time. But I came a long way because I put in the work, I put in the time, and then also recognizing it's hopefully about the journey, right? Not to quote Brandon Sanderson, but it's about the journey. It's not the destination. Like, you gotta, like enjoy the journey, and like part of that journey is you improve, and then sometimes you lose something, but then you start improving again. So yeah.
There's a saying in the therapy community that healing isn't linear, progress isn't either. It's all squiggly and stuff. It may seem like you're going backwards, but when you zoom out, overall, it's progress.
Okay, before my question, I just want to make a comment on crafting. So I'm a weaver. In one of my weaving classes, the weaving instructor actually told us there is a belief in a lot of cultures you're supposed to make at least one mistake when you weave a piece of cloth. Otherwise, there will be bad spirits that will come. But as for my question, I don't know how much experience with neurodivergent, I know they're ADHD, but do you think people who are like neurodivergent in general have a harder time with failure and getting out of this failure loop?
I can't speak to that, sorry.
I'm gonna let the therapist talk first.
Oh, no. I think there's a lot of pressure in culture and society to be a certain way. And so just, again, how can we allow people to just be themselves and allow for mistakes and do things how you want to do them, like what works for you, not like where people tell you how you should be doing something. And yeah, I love that with leaving room for mistakes in there, kind of knowing like, oh, this is part of the process.
I would add on to that a little and give yourself permission to be outside the box. There is a fairly standard set of societal expectations for all of us that are mostly bullshit. How you choose to define success and failure is your own. If you arrive at the same destination, who gives a crap if you still ate breakfast, even if you ate your cereal out of a cup? Do what works for you. And don't apologize for that. Like if you have to make it work for yourself and you're still doing the same, they don't get to question how you got there.
Yeah, sorry, I will speak a little bit on that. In terms of coaching, right? It's that I will show you what worked for me. That's not necessarily what may work for you. And my goal is to find out what works for you. Like what gets us to where you're succeeding, because that will be different for people. And again, like I can help you, but like it won't be a one-to-one recreation. I think it's important that people understand that. Like we all succeed in different ways. Just throw the mic.
What are some of the things you do like in the moment when you fail, you feel frustrated? For me, I listen to certain music that helps me look a bit edgy, or I can tell me to say, okay, what am I going to do next? But what are some of those kind of things?
I curl up in the fetal position.
As one does. Breathing. Make sure you breathe. Like breathing helps a lot. Like because our natural instinct is to tense up. Like something has gone wrong, we're going to tense up. You start engaging your fight or flight reflexes, and so just breathe. Like accept that this is happening. Okay. Breathe in, breathe out. Like start trying to get yourself back under control because you can control your breathing. Right? Like that is something that you can control in the moment. And then from there, you can start working on, okay, how do I deal with these other things?
This actually totally brought something really emotional up for me that I haven't thought about for a while. So my first horse that I ever had was kind of a wonky older guy, and I was not good at riding. I was not good at horsemanship, and I remember struggling along the way. One of our first trail rides at a state park, all of my friends were all on, they were all ready to go, and I had to get down to get something, and they had started to leave without me. And my horse would not stand, and I didn't have the physical ability to get on without him standing still. Like, I thought I had taught him, and I remember getting so angry with him and just like screaming at him in this park, and I had to stop and just look at this animal who loved me, who was just like, holy shit, what the fuck did I just do? And just apologize to him, to myself, to everybody else who was listening. and just be like, you know what, we're gonna get through this, buddy. Let's find a different path together. And I called a couple friends over, they stood there, he stood perfectly, we got on, we had an amazing ride. But it was that stopping before you do damage, before you do harm, before you hurt yourself. And breathe. And breathe. Breathe some more. And give yourself the time to come back to yourself.
Yeah, I would say a lot of community too. Like, I get a lot of reassurance and have great friends who can help me out.
Any other questions? One, go ahead.
He's really getting his steps in today.
So at least 2 of the panelists have said they felt they're good at everything. And yet all 3 of you signed up for a panel about failure. And I'm just wondering what you feel that says about you as a person.
Very kind words. And one of the reasons why I'm good at a lot of things is, you know, luck and whatever, but it's also perseverance. If I want something, I'm going to keep working at it. You can knock me down and I'm going to get right back up. That resilience is the thing that I hope you all give yourselves. It's so important.
Yeah. Also, never underestimate the power of spite. Sometimes the things that are out of your control can make you angry enough to go try again. So yeah, it's I mean, but becoming successful, thinking you're good at everything, like, you also have to accept that, yeah, there will be failure along the way, right? Like, you are going to fail. You're actually going to fail a lot. Like, particularly the higher you try to go, the more you're going to fail, because you're doing things that are progressively more important. So yeah, it's a really fine line, right? You got to balance between, I have the confidence that I'm always going to succeed versus I am going to fail. And then how do you bring those 2 together? That's going to determine whether or not, in the long term, like, are you actually successful? Because if you believe too far in either direction, well, you're either delusional or you're not going to try. So you got to find out how to balance those.
If I reframe it as learning and not failing, then I haven't failed.
We have our last few minutes here, and so I do want to like actually do fun exercise. Because everything you mentioned, we have like the panel set up, but it's we're good at keep mention. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but we don't do like the traditional like convention thingy. So I'm just gonna say a sentence, but I'm not gonna finish it, and I'd like you all to finish it. So it's just once, don't worry. It's not gonna just no trust falls.
I want to go first, damn it.
We have an hour left.
So too easy. Failure is a friend because
I don't know why, like, cuddly monster came up. Like, it's just a big cuddly monster.
So for me, failure is a friend because it helps me succeed.
Failure is a friend because it gives me new ways to do things.
I don't know how to see one. No, we only got a few minutes left. So what we'd like to do though is tell us where we can find you both at Con and then in the real world.
I don't know how to. Okay, So I'm doing a whole bunch of like panels and stuff. This is my first time being on panels at cons, like at Rainbow. Of all the ones I'm on, the one I want to plug is the mystery soda panel. It's terrible, and you will come watch me suffer.
You can find me on Blue Sky at Chris Warcraft, should you care to be on social media. And then tonight I'm doing SmackDown Battle of the Bands on the main stage and the live Dungeons & Dragons RPG. So those will be a lot of fun. But the one I'm really looking forward to is tomorrow, the physics of kicking a football. It's going to be at 2 p.m. on the main stage. And it's me and Dr. Jim, so that should be a good time.
Stephanie Dreis. The clinic I co-own is Catalyst Insight Collective. You'll see me rocking around today as Bob Ross. I also have a ray gun costume, and I'll be Kaylee from Firefly. So if you see any of those, come say hi to me. Yes.
I'll be Dorothy tomorrow, and I will have special ribbons. Come find me. Oh no, sorry, Dorothy was. Look for my sparkly high tops. I know. I'm sorry. There's only one Dorothy. Well, no, that's not true. Okay,
I have ribbons. Come find me.
I also brought my commander deck for anyone who brought theirs.
Well, one thing, thank you for this amazing day. Did I not say this is the greatest panel? Thank you for the audience being awesome. I'm sure there'll be one in chit chat and other stuff. So otherwise, enjoy your time.